Hello, and welcome back to the March of the Machine set review for Limited. Today is going to be Black, working on. So I'm basically reviewing all the cards for in a draft setting. That's the format I like to play the most. Yeah, so the way that I do that is I have these 5 tiers. Sorry about that. And my professionalism is truly unmatched. But hide myself a little bit so you can see them. Basically, tier 1 is good, tier 5 is bad. You can read through the sort of descriptions of what they mean here, but essentially it sort of is a sliding scale. Not the most complex way of grading stuff. And without further ado, I'm gonna reappear and we're gonna get right into it. First card is Archpriestess Shadows, 3 black for a 4/4 with backup 1. It has Death Touch. And whenever this creature deals combat damage to a player in a battle, return target creature from your graveyard to the battlefield. So this basically, everything with backup kind of turns the creature that you're backing up into a copy, like into a sort of hasty version of this creature. You can also just make this a 5/5, which is not like the absolute worst thing on planet Earth, like a 5-mana 5/5 with death. Like it's not good, but it's not that bad. The ability is probably, it looks better than it is, but it is, like, in reality, what this is probably going to get you back is most likely like a 2 or a 3 drop. But whatever, that's still great, right? Like, if, it just is, it has such high upside, right? Like, the blowout potential truly is extreme that I'm willing to just put this in tier 1. It could end up not being there just because it is, I mean, you are paying 5 mana, you do have to have a creature on the battlefield, but the creature gets Death Touch, so maybe it trades up, so I don't know about all that, but the +1/+1 counter synergy is real. There's stuff that works with them all over the place, so I think it's just going to be a good card. Next, to Bladed Battlefan. It's 1 in the black for an equipment with flash. And then there's a battlefield. You attach a target creature you control for free. That creature gains indestructible until end of turn. So the equipped creature in this case keeps the +1/+0, right? So it basically, as a combat trick, this is +1/+0 indestructible. And then the equipment 6 round is just a 1 mana to equip +1/+0. Which I think is fine. I actually think this provides some decent utility. Like normally, these type of cards are not very good. Like these type of tricks, like the indestructible trick in black, usually they give Death Touch. If this gave Death Touch, it would be absurd, obviously. It would just be really good because the equipment on the backside would give Death Touch. I actually wonder if it would be better with Death Touch or +1/+0. I don't know. Actually, it's an interesting question whether or not this equipment would be better if it's at a 1 mana equipped gives me Death Touch. I assume they probably printed that at some point and it was bad. So that's why they didn't do that. Long term, I think the +1/+0 is better. Indestructible is nice too, so I don't know. I think this is actually going to end up being a pretty good card, just because, I mean, there is some artifact type stuff in black, maybe a little bit, but not too much. I think the main point of this card is it's just kind of a nice combat trick that gets you some value going later on. I think it's just kind of a decent, solid card. Next, Bloated Processor. 2 in a black for a 3/2, you sacrifice another Phyrexian. Put a +1/+1 counter on it, and when it dies, you incubate X, for X is its power. So basically, you're making another guy that's huge. So at base rate, when this dies, it makes a 3/3 incubator token, but you have to obviously pay 2 to flip it. And if like that's just good, right? That's just insane. Like that is already really strong because you're basically drawing a card that says make a 2 mana 3/3 when this dies, which is pretty good. That's like a good card, and the 3/3 also will have haste unless it like dies and you want to like for some reason attack that turn. Obviously good that it has a free sacrifice outlet. Like free sac outlets are always strong. So this is a good one. There's actually a number of free sacrifice outlets in the set, so watch out for that. Oh, I've gone too far. Breach the Multiverse. Oh, I know why I went too far. 5 black for a sorcery. Each player mills 10 cards. For each player, choose a creature or planeswalker card in that player's graveyard to put those cards into the battlefield under your control. Then each creature you control becomes a Phyrexian to other types. This is not a limited card. It's just not really good. Like the cards that you're likely to hit off of this. I mean, yes, it's 10 cards each, so you're probably gonna hit something decent, but it's 7 mana. Like I don't. This is just not. It's just isn't it. Like these type. Now, obviously, like this is the type of card that like 1 in every 15 of them is just like really good for some reason. I just can't imagine it here. Like reanimates are never really that good. Now, if you're doing like if you're honestly, I think this is like the mill 10 cards. That, like I don't know. I'm gonna try to bail your opponent out, but I don't know. Convince me. Somebody convince me this isn't unplayable. Next, Collective Nightmare. 2 and a black for an instant with Convoke. Target creature gets -3/-3 until end of turn. So, very cheap instant speed interaction. Can actually be free. Obviously, at 2 mana, this would have been absurd. At 3 mana, it's still really strong. Yeah, it's just a really strong removal spell. And it, like this is going to be really important when, like whenever you try to flip a creature, you're going to be like, well, I hope they don't have this, because they're just might just blow me out because I'm trying to transform a creature, and then they just Collective Nightmare the creature. And it's like, oh, well, I spent like 6 mana trying to transform this 2/2, and now it's just dead for free, you know? I think this card is just actually insane. I might actually end up even being in tier 1. Like, it's just really efficient. Next, completed Huntmaster. 2 and a black for a 2/3. You pay 1 and tap it to sacrifice another creature or artifact, and you incubate 3. So this card seems decent to me. I was sort of debating whether or not to put it in tier 2 or tier 3. It is a slow-ish engine of 3/3s. You do have to pay 3 mana to make them, basically, and you just have something you want to sacrifice. I don't know if there's a ton of stuff you're going to want to sacrifice, but making a bunch of 3/3s is good, as we found out in All Be One. But it is a 2 mana to make the 3/3. I don't know. I have doubts about like being like having to sacrifice stuff is not always the best to make your guys. If you can generate a lot of nonsense tokens, or if you have a lot of those like O1s, for some reason there's a lot of O1s in the set. So if you got a lot of O1s, this is probably like good. If it ends up being good. Overall, I'm skeptical without the right deck for it. I think it's fine normally. Next, Consuming Etherborn. 3 and a black for a 2/2 with backup 1 and lifelink. I respect lifelink so much that I'm putting this in tier 3, even though the rate on this card is so bad. Like it is basically it's basically a hill giant with lifelink, technically. But like I'm kind of a like if this card were acceptable at 3 mana, they would have printed it at 3 mana, but they can't. They clearly can't because it would be too good, right? Wizards knows that the card would be too good at 3 mana. So they had to put it at 4, and I'm kind of like respecting that. I'm respecting the card being good as a result of that. This is one of those cards where you're like, all right, it looks so bad. Like, it looks really bad, but it does have lifelink. Like lifelink, as we all know, is good and limited. And I don't know, give me something else. Lifelink is just really strong. It's probably actually tier 4 though. When I look at this card, I'm like, I'm not gonna like this. I'm not gonna pick this highly. But the reason I'm not gonna pick it highly is maybe not because I don't think it's like decent. It's sort of because it's more because I don't think other people are gonna pick it highly. But then it's like, am I actually gonna play this? Is this actually an average card? Maybe it's not. It's probably like not that. I'm keeping it in tier 3 for now. Because of lifelink. Lifelink, I'm a believer. Next, Corrupt Conviction, single black mana for an instant. Additional cost to cast it, sacrifice a creature, and you draw 2 cards. So this is Village Rites, basically. Village Rites tends to be a trap, so don't play it. Like, if you're good at the game. Like, I don't even consider myself to be good enough at the game to be playing Village Rites in my decks. Like, it just isn't. Like, you really got to know when you want it, and you generally don't want it. It sort of sits in your hand a lot, and you're kind of like, I don't really want to sacrifice my 2/2 for no reason. But it does have its place, obviously, at times. It has its moments. It clearly has its moments. So people like it. So it will always feel bad when your opponent casts it. That does not mean that it was a good card. Next, Deadly Derision. 2 black black for instant, destroy target creature or planeswalker, create a treasure token. This was a really good card in, what's it called? Adventures of the Forgotten Realms, and I expect it to be a really good card here. Making a treasure is good. Treasures are nice to have to sacrifice or do other stuff with. Destroying stuff is also good. For 4 mana. So, yep, this is just really going to be strong. I don't see any reason why this wouldn't be good. Next, Dreg Recycler. 1 and a black for a 2/2 with tap. Sacrifice an artifact or creature. Each opponent loses 1 life and you gain 1 life. So this is a free sacrifice outlet. I actually think this is a pretty decent card. I think it's solid. The draining your opponent for 1 always comes up. You can end up sort of being like, start burning people out sometimes. You can sacrifice this, notably, so if your opponent ever is like, oh, well, I want to remove that, you're basically just signing up to get drained for 1 by it, because you can always just tap it and sacrifice it. So I think it's a solid card. I think it does a lot. Again, I think if you are in the sacrifice business, which black sort of is, but I just don't think there's like that much of a coherent theme about it. Like there's some theming like red black, but even then it's not. I don't know if there's that many rewards for you sacrificing things, but I guess we'll see. I guess we'll find out. If there is, this card's great, and if there's not, this card is medium. Next, Etched Familiar. 2 and a black for a 3/2. When it dies, each opponent loses 2 life, and you gain 2 life. So yep, this is a solid card. Obviously, it is much worse that it has to die for this to happen than if it were entering the battlefield, and this is why it is in Tier 3 and not Tier 2. The ability is still very good, though. And there's also an artifact, which, for some reason, I'm sure, like, again, like, there must be some reason why there's artifact. Like, I don't know. There must be some card, like, something I'm missing here, or why this is an artifact. It just doesn't seem necessary for it to be an artifact. I think they were just like, it's an artifact, whatever. But I don't know. Anyway, it seems decent. It seems average. Maybe it's like whatever. I don't know. I don't have any problems with this card. Next, Etched Host Doombringer. 4 and a black for a 3/5. When it enters the battlefield, you choose 2. Target opponent loses 2 life and you gain 2 life. Or you choose target battle. If an opponent protects it, remove 3 defense counters. I don't always put 3 defense counters on it. So this guy has got a lot of flexibility. It's a 3/5 for 5, which isn't the best. It's not the best. But I really like. I mean, just any card that drains your opponent for 2 generally is just a good card. Like just a good card usually, because it provides, like, this thing is just like, it's very annoying. And you can also, like, I think what's going to happen more often is you're going to flip the battle. Like, you're going to say, okay, well, my opponent, if you're playing battles, this deck is great with battles, especially because it's 5 mana. Most of the battles you kind of want to be playing in your deck are 4 mana. Like, pretty much like 4 mana is sort of the turn where you're going to be playing battles most often. And this card, it sort of comes right after that turn, and then you flip your battle, and it's great. So that's, you can flip it, and that's really strong. That's a strong thing to be able to do. It's a lot of tempo. So there are not many cards that interact with battles without having to attack, and this is one of them. So I think it's pretty good. Next, Failed Conversion. 4 and a black for an enchantment. Enchanted creature gets -4/-4. When an enchanted creature dies, surveil 2. So this is basically 5 mana -4/-4, surveil 2. That's not a good card. So I don't know. You got to get some bad removal. Like sometimes you got to have bad removal spells. This is one of them. This is not. There's no reason to play this. It's very inefficient and is just not. There's just, like, we've seen 2 really insane black removal spells. Like, this is not. You don't need this. Next, Final Flourish. 1 and a black for an instant with kicker, sacrifice an artifact or creature. Target creature gets -2/-2 until end of turn. If the spell was kicked, that creature gets -6/-6 until end of turn instead. So, you can hard remove something if you needed to, or you can just -2/-2, which is pretty decent. Like this, like having this flexibility is great. It may end up not being quite this good just because the kicker is such a steep cost, but flexibility usually ends up winning out in the day, you know. So that's sort of my take on this card. Next, Flitting Gorilla. 2 and a black for a 2/2 flyer. When it dies, each player mills 2 cards. Then you may exile Flitting Gorilla. When you do, put target creature or battle card from your graveyard on top of your library. I mean, like, I think this could have said into your hand, and I think it would just have been like a tier, like, 3 card. Like, I don't think it would have been that good. I don't think it would have been that good if you put it in your hand, right? Am I wrong? I don't think that would be so insane. I know, like, they printed a card that was 3 mana 2/1, like, draw a card. Like, they literally just printed that. And this is just, everything about this card is worse than that card. I know that card was, like, maybe the best limited common of all time, but, like, here we are, and this is just, like, I don't know, man. I don't, like, what are we doing? Like, what are we doing here? We're doing recursions? Like, the mill stuff doesn't make any sense. I don't think the mill stuff is going to get there in blue-black. I just don't see it. I don't understand what is it doing? How are you doing this thing? Like, how is it happening? And each player is milling too, so, like, I just don't know. I don't know, man. I just can't see it. You got all these, like, battles and stuff going on, and you're, like, milling, doing, like, a mill theme. It's like, I don't know. Weird. Next, Gift of Completion. 1 of the black for an enchantment. When it enters the battlefield, incubate 3. Whenever Phyrexian you control dies, surveil 1. So this is probably a bit harsh on the grade for me, because, like, at the worst case scenario, this is like a 4 mana 3/3, which is kind of like when it dies, surveil 1, which is kind of like a tier 4 card. But this, I think, is the worst of these enchantments, because despite it being the cheapest, the ability that it gets you when a Phyrexian you control dies, surveil 1 is almost nothing. It's just not worth it, right? Like, again, you're theoretically supposed to care a little bit about the graveyard, but I just don't. It's just not it. Like, if from an efficiency standpoint, like, getting to incubate 3 is, like, for 2 is fine. Maybe the thing I'm missing about this card is that the synergy of incubating itself is enough. You know what I mean? Like, if the synergy of just incubating for 3 for 2 is, like, enough, and that, like, is just enough for 2 mana, then we're fine. Then this card's actually decent. This card's like an average card, whatever. I don't know. I don't have, like, the granting surveil 1 on death is just not. It's just not it. It's just not where you want to be. So next, Glistening Deluge. 1 black for a sorcery. All creatures get -1/-1 until end of turn. Creatures that are green or white get -2/-2 until end of turn. Yep, these cards are always very bad. This card is also going to be very bad. Don't play it. Next, Gloomfang Mauler. 5 black for a 5/5 with swamp cycling. It has backup 2, which means it gives 2 counters. It doesn't do anything other than just give an additional counter. It also has Menace. So I like this card quite a bit. Of the cycling cards, I think it's the second best one behind the white one. But yeah, so this is just a huge guy that is gonna give something Menace that allows allow you to attack in the late game, and in the early game you just cycle it. I don't think there's going to be much time to cycle in this format. I really don't. I think that cycling on turn 2 is going to be, like, really bad, like, horrible. Like, you really are not going to want to do that. But there are some games in which you're going to have to do it, and you're going to be unhappy about it. But, like, you can also, this card is a reanimate target if you're doing some sort of weird, like, if you're doing the mill thing and you need a reanimator target for whatever reason, this is kind of your guy. This is what you want. It is common, and it does, like, you can get itself into the graveyard very easily. So I like the card. I just don't know if it's. I just think mana cost is still an issue. Like, it still is a tough card to cast, but otherwise a pretty solid card. Next, Grafted Butcher. 1 in the black for a 2/2 when it enters the battlefield. Phyrexians you control gain mana until end of turn. It's a Phyrexian Lord, so the other Phyrexians get +1/+1. And you can pay 3 in a black to sacrifice it, an artifact or creature, and return it from your graveyard to the battlefield. It is not tapped, by the way. You activate it only as a sorcery. Yeah, so this is just a Phyrexian Lord that just keeps coming back, basically. So if you're building your deck around the Lord, I think this is going to be really solid. There are a decent number of Phyrexians, so especially in white-black, that's kind of the Phyrexians deck, but every deck is going to have them. It's going to be best in white-black, but there are other places where it's going to be okay. You're never going to cut this card. Yeah, so it's solid. I just don't think it's quite, like, taking over the game, really. There are some decks where it will, but most decks I think it's just going to kind of be nice and just hang out and do good stuff. That's kind of it. Next, Hoarding Broodlord. 5 and 3 black for a 7/6 flying with Convoke. When it enters the battlefield, search the river for a card, exile it face down, shuffle. For as long as it remains exiled, you may play it, and spells you cast from exile have convoke. So you're probably not going to be able to cast it that turn. Like, you're probably not going to be able to cast it the turn that you get it, so this thing has to live for a turn for you to draw a card. But it's also a huge flyer. So, I don't know. I've put this into tier 2. It may not actually get there, just because it's going to be tough to cast. But if you can cast it reliably, it's great. The difficulty of casting it is actually not as high. Like, I know there's triple black, but the convoke, because you can pay colored mana, it's not that bad. Yeah, I don't know. I think it's solid card. It's just large. I can't see tier 1 just because, like, cards that are tier 1 tend to be removal resistant or do something immediately. This does not do that. It's just really large and is an enormous problem. Next, Ichor Drinker. 1 black mana for a 1/1 with lifelink. And you can pay 1 and exile it from your graveyard to incubate 2, and you activate only as a sorcery. I like this one quite a bit. It wears backup counters really well. It has lifelink. It's 1 drop. When it goes into your graveyard, you can, like, it only costs, it basically gives you the option to make a 3 mana 2/2, which is not good, right? That's not a good thing to do. But it is cheap. Like, you can weave that in over like a couple of turns, and then it's like almost free kind of. So I like it quite a bit. I'm a really big fan of this card. I think it's one of Black's better commons. Next, Ichor Shade, 2 mana black for a 2/3. At the beginning of your end step, if an artifact or creature was put into the graveyard from the battlefield this turn, put +1/+1 counter on it. These type of cards tend to be very bad. Like, obviously it works with when all your stuff dies and whatever, and it's a 2/3, so maybe, like, it's okay. Like, there are decks where this is probably going to be okay, right? Like, the 2/1 in Brothers War had its moments. There is a lot of, like, unlike in a lot of other sets, there is free sack outs in the set. I just don't know if there's stuff that you actually want to sack. So, we'll see. This card could end up getting there, and I could be proven incorrect. Like, this could be the reason to do the sacrifice things, could sort of be your engine, but you kind of need multiples of them to do that. I still don't know if it's enough of a reward to sort of be trying to do that thing. Next, Merciless Repurposing. 4 black for an instant, exile target creature, incubate 2, or incubate 3, sorry. Yeah, so this is just a really, like, it's an expensive removal spell, right? Like, it's 6 mana, but you're incubating for 3, which is, like, it's sort of like, oh, well, it's an 8. Would you really want an 8 mana 3/3 remove something? Like, well, no, not really, but I'm getting, like, the 3. Like, this has Rise of Extus vibes. You know what I mean? Like, you're getting a lot of value out of this card, and it's an instant. So I don't know. I like it quite a bit. It could end up just being like, well, nope, this is too expensive. You can't use it. The format's too fast. You never want to cast a 6 mana removal spell, and that's possible. That's very possible. But if the format is not too fast, then this is strong, I think. Next, Mirrodin Avenged. Single black mana for an instant. Destroy target creature that was dealt damage this turn, and you draw a card. We've seen this type of card before. It's never really that good. It has its moments, but, like, don't play it. Next, Nezumi Informant. 1 in the black for a 1/1 and it enters the battlefield. Each opponent discards a card. Another card we have seen many, many times. It is always solid. If you are trying to do sacrifice stuff, it's probably good. Like, this is a good thing to sacrifice because it gets you a lot of value when you do that. So if that's the thing that you're doing, great. If it's not the thing that you're doing, then it's still fine. It's not anything special, but it's fine. Next, Phyrexian Gargantua. 4 black for a 4/4. When it enters the battlefield, you draw 2 cards and lose 2 life. I don't know. I really don't like. This is just a really unflexible card. Like, you don't, like, it's a 6 mana 4/4, which is very bad. And then you sign and blood yourself, and it's just like, you kind of were like, well, what if we just said 4 colorless mana and then sign and blood mana on a 4/4? Think about that. And then they thought about it, and they were like, they cooked it up in the lab, and they were like, yeah, that'll do it. Yeah. It's just ain't, like, I mean, it's just ain't it, right? Like, there's just no way. It's so slow. Like, you play this on the battlefield, and your opponent's like, okay, you're dead. You just die. You don't even have an option of whether or not you would like to draw the cards and lose 2 life. You're just like, I'll just play this 4/4, and surely it won't get removed, and I won't just like instantly lose the game every single time I cast it. Next, pile on. 3 into black for an instant with Convoke, destroy target creature or planeswalker, surveil 2. So this card is just really strong. Obviously, it's going to be very efficient removal at instant speed with Convoke, which means it can be free and you can destroy stuff for free sometimes, and free spells are very good. Again, how are you getting 4 creatures to Convoke it? Good question. Apparently you're going to have a lot of tokens and stuff, so theoretically you can actually, the dream is actually real. Yeah. And Surveilling 2 is great. Surveilling 2 on a removal spell is very solid. Apparently it synergizes with what Black's doing. I like this card quite a bit. Just where you want to be. Next, Render Inert. 2 and a black for a sorcery remove up to 5 counters from target permanent, draw a card. So I put this in Tier 2. I actually meant to put it in Tier 3 because it only works on battles, so it's very situational and is a sorcery. But like, the reason it's here is that when you draw, like, drawing a card is so good. Now, it's 3 mana. But if this card basically says, transform a battle, draw a card. Now, transforming a battle is giving you a creature in most cases. So, you are, like, this isn't the worst tempo decision of all time. You just need to have a lot of battles in you just need to be wanting to transform battles. Like, if you don't want, if the format is like, well, it turns out actually you never want to transform battles, this card sucks and is unplayable. Because that's what it's for. It's supposed to transform battles. So if your deck is like trying to transform battles, this card's what you want. Yeah. Next, Scornblade Berserker. 1 mana, 0/1, backup 1. You can sacrifice this creature to draw a card. Okay, I put this too low. I got mad at these. This is probably a Tier 3 card. Backup is good, and just being able to cast this in to draw a card in like the mid to late game is decent. I just don't like. What are we set? Like, who is gaining? I don't know. The sacrifice stuff, it just doesn't seem like it's going to get there to me. Now, backup 1 is very good, obviously, but like, you give the creature the ability to sacrifice. Like, give the creature that you just made bigger the ability to sacrifice itself to draw a card for 1 turn. Why? Like, it's not good. That doesn't make sense. Make it make sense. Like, a 1 mana 1/2 that you can sacrifice to draw a card isn't good either. So, I don't know. Actually, maybe I'm going to stick with this. I just don't like this. I honestly think this would be better if this just like incubated. Like, if this card was just like incubate 2 or something, then it would just be like actually a really good card. It's like a 1 mana 0/1 incubate 2. And you could sacrifice, like, that would just be really good, but this is not that. Next, Tenured Oilcaster. 3 and a black for 2/4 menace. It gets +3/+0 as long as the opponent has 8 or more cards in their graveyard. And when it attacks or blocks, each player mills a card. And so, I guess or blocks is sort of a thing. I don't know. How is this? Like, this is like, if you're doing the thing, if you get this to be a 4 mana 5/4 menace, it's great. Obviously, that's true. If you're doing it, if a deck that actually does the thing, this is kind of a payoff for doing that. The question is, how often is that happening? So 8 cards. This is 4 mana. So on turn 4, but like, when is it getting attacked into and it can block favorably? Never. That's never happening. I just don't see it. I don't know. Sure. Maybe the mill stuff gets there, and this is just like really key for the mill stuff, but I'll need to see it to believe it. Next, Dramatic Revelation. 1 and a black for a sorcery. Target opponent reveals their hand. You may choose a creature or battle card from it. If you do, that player discards that card. If you don't, incubate 3. So 2 mana incubate 3, like the worst possible scenario, which isn't even that bad. Which means I need to go revise my rating on that other card that is basically just 2 mana incubate 3, and I was like hating on it. But this card at least allows you to like remove like a bomb from your opponent's hand. So this card is definitely, I think, in my opinion, better than that card. At least in the early game. Now in the later game, where was I? Anyways, this card, personal, like, I love the design on this card because it does sort of give you a buyout. Like, you can choose to remove nothing. That's always an option that you can choose. And that's always an interesting option, right? That's the thing I like about this card, is it's like, oh, what if I just made a 2-mana 3/3 that could attack next turn? And that's sometimes what you're going to want to do. So, interesting card. Next, Unseal the Necropolis. 2 and a black for an instant. Each player mills 3 cards, and you return up to 2 target creature cards from your graveyard to your hand. No. There's like... So the whole format is about giving you card advantage, and so you just shouldn't need this. Is sort of my view on this card. Like, there just should be no reason that you need this card to get card advantage. There's a bunch of cards that transform, which give you card advantage. There's battles, which give you card advantage. Like, those are 2 core mechanics that are, like, giving you card advantage that you shouldn't need. You should never run out of stuff to do. Like, this is not... I don't know, I don't see it. Next, Vanquish the Weak. So much removal in black. 2 and a black for an instant. Destroy target creature with power 3 or less. This is fine. It's not great or anything. It's fine. It's solid. It's whatever. It's an instant. That's cool. That's good. I don't know why there's so much removal in black. There's just tons of it. There's tons of removal. Like, all over the place. Our first battle in black. 3 and a black for a 4 loyalty, I guess, battle. When it enters the battlefield, your target opponent discards 2 cards. And if you transform it, it's a 2/2 flyer. At the beginning of each opponent's upkeep, that player has 2 or fewer cards in hand, it deals 2 damage to them. So this card is weird. It does come in on, like, you do want to be playing your battles on turn 4. Like, that's sort of what my understanding is. From looking at the cards, all the cards, a bunch, I'm kind of like, your ideal play pattern with battles is 2-drop, 3-drop battle. So you kind of want to be playing your battles on 4. So this does fit into the curve nicely. That's where you want to be playing them. And it is, like, so it's a mind rot. And at that point in the game, like, it's probably going to be a decent mind rot. But, like, the concern with this card, as is the concern with many mind rots, is that it just doesn't do anything. Like, it's just not, it's too low impact in certain points of the game. Now, this format in particular may end up being a card advantage format. It may end up being a tempo format. If it ends up being a card advantage format, this card is very, very good because it is preventing your opponent from accruing card advantage. If it is a tempo format, this card is basically unplayable because your opponent's going to not care that they're losing 2 cards at 4 mana because you're going to have done nothing to prevent them from hitting you in the face. So, we'll see how it pans out. I was sort of bouncing between, like, is this an average card or just a below average card? It is uncommon, so maybe, like, just give them the credit and put it at tier 3, but I think it's kind of medium. Next, Invasion of Fiora, 4 black for a battle. When it enters the battlefield, choose one or both. Destroy all legendary or destroy all non-legendary creatures. And then it transforms into Marchesa. Resolute Monarch. Marquesa, I don't know. It has Menace, Death Touch is a 3/6. When it attacks, remove all counters from up to 1 target permanent. At the beginning of your upkeep, if you haven't been dealt combat damage since your last turn, you draw a card and you lose 1 life. So this card is just insane. When you transform it, it only has 4 loyalty. It is a Wrath on the front. So this card is just insane card advantage, but also is a decent card. Like, if this card were just the front side, it would be like a tier 2 card. But because it also has the back, it's like, oh, okay, cool. It just also wins the game when it transforms too. So that's great. Invasion of Innistrad. 2 and 2 black for a 5 loyalty siege with flash. When it enters the battlefield, target creature gets -13/-13, more black removal, and transforms into Deluge of the Dead. When it enters the battlefield, you create 2/2/2 black zombie tokens, and you can pay 2 and a black to exile target creature from a graveyard if it was a creature card. Create a 2/2 black zombie creature token. So you can exile any card, but you're probably going to exile creatures. Yeah, this card seems solid enough to me. Like, you are making it much easier to transform by removing something that your opponent has, and it's just like the front side is just a solid card. So the back, like, just having extra ability to make stuff is good. Next, Invasion of Olgortha. There we go. 4 and a black for a 5 loyalty thing. When it enters the battlefield, it deals 3 damage to any other target, and you gain 3 life. So solid, like, this is just solid removal, and it transforms into a 3/3 flyer, and when that creature an opponent controls dies, put a +1/+1 counter on it, and you gain 1 life, which is solid, but not an insane card by any means. And I think this is just a good card. Like, it's sort of high on the curve, which is where you want your battles to be. I think you want your battles to be expensive. I don't think you want them to be cheap. The cheap ones, I think, generally are going to suffer from not being able to be removed as easily as you want. And this one helps you to remove it, which is good. Next, Etherblade Agent. 1 and a black for a 1/1 with Death Touch. When you can pay 4 and a blue Phyrexian to transform it. You can only transform it as a sorcery. Transforms into a 3/3 with Death Touch, and when it deals combat damage to a player or battle, you draw a card. These type of cards tend to not be very good, although it has Death Touch on the front, so it seems like it kind of like blocks well and attacks well. Like when your opponent's just not gonna like when you transform this, your opponent's just gonna be like, okay, fine, now I'll block it. I know it's a 3/3, but you paid 6 total mana or 7 total mana. 6 mana and 2 life or 7 total mana for this 3/3. And it's like, no, like it's not, this isn't appealing to me. Next, Ayara, Widow of the Realm. 1 black for a 3/3. You can tap it to sacrifice another creature or artifact. It deals X damage to target opponent or battle. And you gain X life, where X is the sacrifice permanent's mana value, and you pay 5 and a red Phyrexian to transform it. Of course, only the sorcery, that's all of them in the set. At the beginning of combat on your turn, it's a 4/4. You return up to 1 target artifact or creature card from the graveyard to the battlefield. It gains haste exile at the beginning of the next end step. So, I'm sort of underwhelmed by this card. Transforming it is fine, but it's kind of hard to cast. It is a sack outlet. It's a nice cheap sack outlet. It's free. I don't know. I'm unimpressed by this card. I think neither side of it is super impressive, but it can certainly do some stuff in the right situation. It's a situationally excellent card, but I just don't think the situation comes up all that often. Very easy to deal with, and difficulty of casting is real. Next, Blight Reaper Thalid. 1 and a black for a 2/2. You transform it, and it transforms into a 3/3, and when it transforms into a 3/3 or dies, you create a 1/1 green Saproling token. So I think honestly, like, you just are happy to play this on 2 and then transform it in 3 and pay 2 life, and you're just like, okay, like that's fine. Like, I just think that's solid. Like, this is just a solid card that is just decent, you know. That's kind of it. I don't know. I don't really have anything else to say about it. Just a normal, decent card that does good stuff. Nizumi Freewheeler. 3 and a black for a 3/3 with Menace. When it enters the battlefield, each player mills 3 cards. You can pay 5 and a white for X-Sting to transform it. Transforms into a 4/5 with Menace, and when it transforms, you put target permanent card with mana value 2 or less from a graveyard onto the battlefield under your control. I think this card's fine. I just think that the front side is sort of nothing. Like, a 4-mana 3/3 Menace is just not very good. So I do think that milling 3 cards just helps to enable the back, so that's good and whatever. Like, it's sort of like a build your own engine type whatever deal. But I don't know. I'm concerned that you're never like, well, I'm really super excited to pay 6 mana to get this thing back. Again, the thing about these transform cards is they are sort of card advantage too, because you're getting this value of having your smaller card become a larger card, but you're not spending a card to do it. So that is some component of this that I think may actually end up pushing it over the top. But for now, I'm keeping it at average. And the last card in black is Shieldred. I don't really want to bother reading Shieldred because it's a Praetor, and all the Praetors are good except for Jin-Gitaxias, which is kind of just true. 3 black for a 4/5 with Menace. When it enters the battlefield, each opponent sacrifices a non-token creature or planeswalker. Yeah, so the activated abilities on these, like, you pay 5, 4 to black to exile it and return it as the backside, and then this only happens if it's a sorcery and if an opponent has 8 or more cards in their graveyard, whatever. Like, the front, usually these cards, like, you just read the front, the backside, whatever. It's a saga, it's great, it's fantastic, cool. You don't really need to know what it does, it's good. I promise. I'll just put it in the deck and then read it, then figure it out. And that's it. That's kind of it. I don't know. That's all for me. So if you stuck around and watched all the stuff and gained some enjoyment out of it, that's great. Otherwise, I'll see you next time.